Jingle bells, Batman smells, Robin laid an egg. The Batmobile has broke its wheel, the Joker got away. Hey! Welcome to the Lighten Up Project. This is the podcast where joy, laughter, and connection lead the way. This is episode 1, and I am Malcolm Grissom, the stand-up CEO and founder of the World Laughter Organization. Every Thursday, starting December 25th, I am going to bring to you another discussion about how laughter and joy and play lead to hope. Let me start off by telling you something about myself. I have a brain disorder, I guess. I have some slight brain damage from a childhood virus. It's like if my brain were a computer, it would be a PC, and it's constantly clogged with porn. It's also like a playground, and the words are often, they're like these mischievous children who love to play hide and seek, and often do. So I'm going to, throughout the podcast and my interviews, you might see me lose focus, and I'll lose words, and I'll start gesturing and moving around like this. And I do this because it helps me open up my body and get the oxygen in, and that helps think about, well, maybe I'm going to find those words and that thought, and I eventually do. So when I do that, don't worry, it's just one of my wandering thought moments, and just bear with me just a second, and I will find my way back. People ask me why I decided on a Christmas Day launch. Well, I think laughter and connection are the two greatest gifts that I have, that I experience, and that I can give to other people. I love connection. I love connecting with people. And laughter is one of those things that I was born with. And not only laughter, but evoking laughter from others. It comes natural to me. And that is my gift to you. So it doesn't matter whether you celebrate Christmas or Hanukkah or Kwanzaa. This podcast is a gift. It's my gift to you. It's your gift to me. We are having a conversation. I love the guests who have already been on the podcast, who I'm going to be releasing their interviews later. I love the guests that will be joining us in the future, and I love you and the energy and the conversation you bring to our podcast. And you can bring that, you can go to our Facebook page, Lighten Up Project Podcast, and like that, and that's where you'll learn more about the podcast, who's coming up, and you can also make comments there. The title of this episode is How the Monster Reclaimed His Voice. So let me start off by asking you this. Besides death, what are you most afraid of? I started out as an actor, and there's something called the actor's nightmare. You may or may not be aware of this. It's the nightmare. Well, there are two actors' nightmares. There's one nightmare where the actor walks out on stage and is completely naked. And there's the other nightmare where the actor walks out on stage to a full house and forgets what comes next. And that was never so much of a fear for me because I've always been very funny, like I said, and I knew I could always rely on my improvisational skills. And so I would say or do something, even if it weren't the right thing. I would say and do something. And so that was never my fear. But what my fear really is today, more than anything, is if I lost my voice. And I don't mean temporarily, I don't mean laryngitis. I mean, if I was not able to show up in the world like I wanted to. So that leads me to ask you, how does a monster reclaim his voice? How does anybody reclaim their voice if they've lost it? How did they get that back? If this happened to you, how would you reclaim your voice? Let me tell you my story. When I was 7, I starred in a play called Torco the Terrible. And it was about a little boy named Martin. And Martin had this little stuffed doll named Torco. And one magical night, Torco comes to life and grows up, and now all of a sudden he's Torco the Terrible. And all of Martin's friends are afraid. All the town is afraid. And the whole play is about how Martin convinces everybody that Torco, even though he's big and ugly looking, is really just a stuffed animal. And he's lovable and doesn't hurt anybody. I think I was born to be on stage, really. I was actually born on stage. I was born in the backseat of a sports car in front of my entire neighborhood. They were looking as my mom gave birth to me, in this back seat of this little tiny little sports car, and out I come, right? And so I was the neighborhood sweetheart for a couple of years while I was in that neighborhood. And then I went off to, my mom divorced my father and she took me to Hawaii. And in the fourth grade, I was in, excuse me, I was in this small Hawaiian farming town called Honoka'a. And my stepfather was the music teacher at the time at that school. And so it was small and everybody knew who I was. And everybody who was around me, meaning like the other kids in my class, they loved me and enjoyed me because I was the class clown. I was creative. I created plays and I laughed, and I was just the center of attention. And it went on that way, and half the fifth grade went on that way, and then winter break came and Christmas break, and my mom at the end of Christmas break, my mom took me to the top of Mauna Kea, which is the only place in Hawaii where it snows, and she took me up there and I played in the snow with my friends, and it was a blast. It really was. Unfortunately, all of the kids they came down with just regular colds. Because I woke up the next day. It was the first day of school, and I woke up with a headache, and my mom gave me an aspirin substitute, which had some acetaminophen. I think it had some acetaminophen in it, because within 24 hours, I was hospitalized and I was in a coma. Just like that. I was in a coma. And I was like, that's when, because back then the majority of the kids who got this disease, Reyes syndrome, that's when they died. I was lucky because miraculously, no one knows how or what happened, but the swelling in my brain started to reverse itself, and I woke up the next day in the hospital bed. But I was unable to talk. And I could wiggle my fingers. One finger. I could wiggle one finger. And that's about it. I wasn't as scared as I would be today, because back then I was 9 and I didn't know what was going on. Today, I wouldn't know what was going on, but I see the world with different eyes today. And so not to be able to speak would be the biggest fear. Well, anyway, back when I was 9, what happened was my mom took me out of the hospital because she wanted me to be treated with holistic methods, holistic methodologies. And, she brought Chinese doctors in, and she brought my grandmother. She flew her over from Missouri at the time. And she had my grandmother give me acupuncture every day. And between the acupuncture and the physical therapy and the speech therapy that I had, well, eventually I was able to stand on my own and balance and shuffle from point A to point B. And grunt! And that's when Mom said, okay, it's time for you to go back to school. Because she wanted to start a big family. That's the truth. She was just focused on, having more kids, and she wanted me out of the way. So she pushed me back in school. But she put me back into the same class with the same kids. So instead of going back to the 4th grade or repeating the 5th grade, which I had lost, she put me right into the 6th grade. And I'm sure you can imagine what kids are like when they are afraid, because kids do not handle fear very well. Adults don't handle it well either, but kids, especially kids, they only know fight or flight. That's basically it. And that's what I got. Half my class teased me. They teased me, they called me names like leprosy boy. They thought I had leprosy, right? It was one of the ideas that they had. So they called me leper boy, leper boy, leper boy. Or they called me Frankenstein, because I was like a 10-year-old Frankenstein, because I could, basically shuffle and so Frankenstein, oh look, it's little Frankenstein, and so it's either that, and I laugh at it now because I don't want to cry. There's no reason to cry about it now. I laugh because it was silly, really. And so either half of them did that, or half of them were just ignored me. They just ignored me. They left me alone. I was isolated. They didn't talk to me. They didn't even look at me. So it was bullying on both ends. Either it was physically actually bullying me, calling me names, verbal bullying, hitting me, punching me, physically pushing me, bullying, or it was the bullying of isolation, the bullying of I'm not going to talk to you. I'm going to pretend you don't exist. That went on for about 2 years. Oh, I need to tell you this story. There was a group that I was especially tight with before my illness, and it was led by this kid named Tui. Tui, and Kai. Tui and Kai. Kai was sort of Tui's right-hand man, so to speak. And one day I was watching while everybody was playing kickball, and Kai was in the left field. Well, it was probably Tui that kicked the ball, and he kicked the ball over Kai's head, and the ball bounced in the back of this building. And Kai said, "Hey, Malcolm, come on, help me out." Right? And so this was the first time someone was asking me to help them out. So I jumped up, started shuffling and ran over behind this building. And as soon as I got behind the building, Kai punches me in the gut. And it wasn't the punch itself that hurt as much as the confusion as to what's happening. These were my friends, and now they're punching me in the stomach. What's going on? So anyway, I reverted back into my shell for these 2 years. And I really didn't speak to anyone except the school counselor. I would see the counselor every day for 2 years. And then one day, my stepfather, he says to me, "Well, Malcolm, why don't you try some of the things that you did before your illness?" So one of the things that I tried was acting. And here it was, the only place close to acting was speech and debate. So I joined the speech and debate club. And the speech and debate club was one I felt safe because it was led by this wonderful teacher named Mrs. Saito, and she was like the mother I needed. She was the mother I needed. Gave me all the nurturing I needed. I felt safe in her classroom. So that's one reason I joined that club. The second reason is that they only gave speeches to each other. Once in a blue moon, they would speak to another class, and which would mean maybe 20, 25 students at the most, right? So I was really happy to be in that club until Mrs. Saito comes to us one day and says, "Class, I've got some wonderful news. The principal has invited us to speak at the next school assembly. So I'm going to go ahead and write an original script, and I'm going to come back and we're all going to practice and perform it in front of everybody. Yay!" Now, remember, this is a small Hawaiian farming town. It's called Honoka'a Elementary and High School combined. So a school assembly had about 300 students and teachers. I was not looking forward to that. And the next day, Miss Saito comes and she says, "Okay, class, I wrote this play. It's called The Mystery of the Lost Newspaper, and everyone's gonna have a line." And so she gave everyone a line. She cast me as the newspaper boy. And she gave me a line. Luckily, it only had 6 words. "I've got your newspaper, Mrs. Yamaguchi." 6 words. Good. However, I was gonna say those 6 words in front of everybody, including my stepfather, who was going to be there. And so I was freaking out. And I did everything, everything that you'd expect actors to do. I repeated the line 127,000 times to myself. "I got your newspaper, Mrs. Yamaguchi," and I said it so many times to myself, and then I started to get really, really nervous and really, really unsure of myself. And I went up to Mrs. Saito and I said, "Mrs. Saito, I can't do this. What if I make a mistake? Kids already hate me. They're gonna hate me more. You can't make me do this." She says to me, "Malcolm, mistakes are just gifts. It's okay to make mistakes. Mistakes are opportunities to see the beauty in life and try again. If you make a mistake, it's okay because we are here to support you. We have you." And that was enough to get me motivated. Besides, she told me that if I dropped out, well, I would be upsetting everybody in the team because they didn't have enough people to do the whole story if I dropped out, and so I'd be letting everyone down. So I was really caught in between a rock and a hard place, and I remember the day of the assembly. We had our assemblies in this huge auditorium, the basketball auditorium, and all of the students and teachers, they would sit in the bleachers, and I walked in with the rest of the club to this scene of all these kids just looking at us, and they were loud, and they were, it was a very loud situation. And we walked in, and the principal led Mrs. Saito and the rest of us to the very center of the stage, and he lined us up like a firing line. And he announces us, says, "This is the Speech Drum Club with the Mystery of the Lost Newspaper. Dun, dun, dun." And all of the other kids in the group, we stepped up and we gave our lines, and then we stepped back. So the entire time my heart was pounding, and I was saying the line over and over and over to myself, those 6 words. I can say these 6 words. I can really do it. And so when it was my turn, I got up there and I stepped to the microphone and I said, "I've got your paper, Mrs. Yamaguchi." And I was so excited that I got the words out that a long line of snot shot from my nose and hung inches from the ground. And then, like a snot yo-yo. And I tell you, the entire auditorium was cracking up. They were laughing so loud. I was horrified. This was a mistake. I didn't mean to do this. It was a mistake. People are now going to hate me. So I ran to the restroom. I hid, right? I hid until I heard the principal finish the assembly. I heard the kids leave, students leave, and I stayed in that bathroom until Mrs. Saito knocked on the door and she said to me, "Malcolm, you've got some friends here who would like to congratulate you." And it turned out that it was Kai and Tui and the rest of the gang. And Kai comes up to me and says, "Oh, Malcolm, that was great. We loved it. You are so funny. We loved the snot bit." And all of a sudden, this mistake was something that they loved. And it was that day that they started talking to me every day. And once other kids saw they were talking to me, then other kids started talking to me. And pretty soon my confidence was growing. And before I knew it, I wasn't Torko the Terrible. I wasn't Leper Boy. I wasn't Frankenstein. But I was Malcolm. I was part of the gang again. And that's when I realized that's how I reclaim my voice. That's how humor, that's how laughter helped me reclaim my voice. And now with this podcast, what I want to do is I want to help you reclaim yours. I want to help you establish atmospheres where we can play. I want to hear the stories of how you've experienced play. That's why I am creating the World Laughter Organization. It is a global movement to elevate well-being through laughter, resilience, and human connection. I want to treat laughter not as a reaction, not as an afterthought. I want us to think of it as a health strategy. And so I'm going to be combining science and storytelling and positive psychology to help build cultures of safety, joy, connection, creativity in families and schools and communities. And we're going to do that through the Laughter Organization. And especially we're going to look at things like bullying prevention and suicide prevention and conflict resolution, and how laughter and play are essential to combating those. So that's what the World Laughter Organization is about. And the Lighten Up Project is really the voice of that movement. It's the start of that movement. So I want to invite you to like our Facebook page, Lighten Up Project Podcast. You can go on to our Facebook page and see who's coming up in upcoming episodes, and you can join in on the conversation. You can comment, you can suggest who I should interview next. And so I'm really looking forward to this ride with you. It's gonna be fun. So remember, lighten up, because chuckles can create change. Until next Thursday, I'm Malcolm Grissom. I'll see you later.